Why You Must Listen. Alex often felt a heavy silence settle when English conversations arose. He possessed excellent grammar knowledge and a vast vocabulary, diligently learned from textbooks. Yet, when faced with real people, his words simply vanished. This persistent barrier frustrated him deeply, dimming his confidence in daily interactions. He yearned for fluency, for the ability to express himself naturally and effortlessly. He just couldn't break the spell. The desire to speak English confidently became an obsession, a persistent whisper in his mind. He watched fluent speakers with a mixture of admiration and longing, wondering how they achieved such effortless flow. His mind raced, searching for the perfect phrase, but his tongue remained stubbornly tied. This internal battle consumed him, making social situations daunting, even with the simplest of exchanges. He needed a breakthrough. One rainy afternoon, browsing an old bookstore, Alex stumbled upon a worn collection of classic English short stories. The title, Tales of Courage and Curiosity, seemed to call to him. He often avoided reading full English novels, finding them overwhelming and tedious. This small, forgotten book, however, sparked a different kind of interest, a tiny flicker of hope in his persistent struggle. It felt different, somehow. A thought, quiet but insistent, emerged from the back of his mind. What if learning wasn't about memorizing rules, but about immersing myself in the language's very essence? He remembered an online tip, learn English through stories. He decided, right then, to give this unconventional method a genuine try. Perhaps stories held the key to unlocking his hidden voice, a more natural path. The commitment was simple, yet profound: talk in English just 1 page per day. He wouldn't rush, wouldn't force, wouldn't demand perfection. He would simply read 1 page, truly absorb its content, and listen to its audio version. This seemingly small step felt manageable, a gentle entry point into a language that had always felt like an insurmountable mountain. It was a new beginning. The first few days, he merely focused on comprehension, understanding the narrative. Soon, he discovered the power of Why You Must Listen. He started finding audiobooks of his chosen stories, playing them repeatedly. Listening not just to understand, but to grasp intonation, rhythm, and natural pauses. This active listening deepened his connection to the language in unexpected ways. It was more than just words. He noticed subtle shifts. Words he had only ever seen on paper began to sound familiar, taking on a living quality. The characters' emotions, their dialogues, started to resonate within him. This immersion transformed the reading experience from a chore into a captivating journey. Each page turned felt like a small victory, a step closer to his ultimate goal, breaking down barriers. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, his mind began to process thoughts directly in English. Instead of translating from his native language, then to English, his internal monologue shifted. This was the true beginning of How to Think and Speak. He found himself formulating sentences, even entire conversations, entirely within his mind, unencumbered by the translation process. It felt liberating. The stories provided context, emotion, and natural phrasing that textbooks often lacked. He wasn't just learning words, he was learning how those words interacted within real-life scenarios. The idioms, the colloquialisms, the subtle nuances, all began to make sense within the narrative arcs. This made the language feel more alive, more accessible, less like a rigid set of rules. After a few weeks of consistent reading and listening, a new urge surfaced: start talking at home. He felt a growing confidence, an internal readiness to move beyond passive learning. He started by simply repeating sentences from the stories, mimicking the narrator's accents and intonations. This felt less daunting than creating original sentences from scratch, a safe space. He began talking to himself in the mirror, describing his day, narrating mundane tasks, all in English. It felt awkward at first, a strange, solitary performance. But with each passing day, the awkwardness faded, replaced by a growing sense of ease. This self-dialogue was crucial for how make confidence in speaking, building a foundation from within. His voice was emerging. Alex also started recording his voice as he read passages from the stories. Listening back was initially cringe-worthy, highlighting every mispronunciation and hesitant pause. Yet, it was an invaluable tool. He could identify areas for improvement, track his progress, and celebrate the small, yet significant, advancements in his fluency and articulation. It was a powerful feedback loop. The stories became his teachers, his companions, offering a vast array of vocabulary and sentence structures in a natural context. He learned expressions he would never find in a grammar book, phrases that native speakers genuinely used. English story reading provided an organic way to internalize complex language patterns, making them feel intuitive rather than academic. It was immersive. His internal voice, once timid and hesitant, now spoke with increasing clarity and flow. This mental fluency directly translated into a desire for external practice. He realized that the continuous engagement with narrative had reprogrammed his brain, making English a more natural mode of thought. The foundation for confident speaking was firmly established. One day, while buying groceries, the cashier asked a simple question in English. To his astonishment, Alex replied instantly, smoothly, without hesitation. It was a short exchange, but it felt monumental. The words flowed effortlessly, a stark contrast to his past struggles. This small victory ignited a powerful spark of genuine self-belief. His efforts were yielding results. He realized that the stories had done more than just teach him words, they had taught him how to connect with language on an emotional level. He understood not just what was said, but why it was said. This deeper comprehension made interactions feel more authentic, less like a rigid test, more like a natural conversation. It was truly transformative. How to speak with people became less of a theoretical concept and more of a natural outcome of his daily practice. The stories provided a mental library of conversational patterns, of polite phrases, of natural responses. He began to anticipate conversations, to mentally rehearse, but not in a forced way, rather as an intuitive preparation. He started joining online language exchange groups, initially just listening, then slowly contributing. The fear of making mistakes gradually diminished as he saw others learning, struggling, and improving alongside him. This supportive environment further boosted his make confidence in speaking, making the learning journey shared and encouraging. The very interesting story he had initially picked up had indeed become a very interesting story of his own transformation. Each character's journey within the book mirrored his own linguistic adventure, facing challenges, overcoming obstacles, and ultimately finding their voice. It was a metaphor for his personal growth, a truly inspiring parallel. Alex began to share his journey, realizing the power of his experience. "Let me tell you talking tips," he'd say to friends struggling with similar issues. His primary advice always centered around consistent exposure and finding joy in the process, moving away from rote memorization towards genuine immersion. He wanted to help others. His first tip: why you must listen actively, not passively. He emphasized paying attention to rhythm, stress, and intonation, not just individual words. He explained that listening was not just about understanding content, but about absorbing the very music of the language, preparing the ear for authentic communication. It was fundamental. His second tip: embrace English story reading. He urged others to find stories they genuinely enjoyed, regardless of their complexity level. The key, he explained, was engagement. When you're captivated by a narrative, learning becomes effortless, a natural byproduct of your interest, making the process enjoyable and sustainable. He stressed the importance of talk in English just 1 page per day. This manageable goal prevented burnout and overwhelm. It built momentum, turning a daunting task into a series of small, achievable victories. Consistency, he preached, trumped intensity. Small daily efforts accumulated into significant long-term progress. For those struggling with hesitation, he advised, start talking at home. Create a private, judgment-free zone where you can experiment with your voice. Speak to yourself, narrate your actions, or even talk to pets. This preliminary practice builds muscle memory and familiarity with the sound of your own voice speaking English. He explained how to think and speak, highlighting the critical shift from translation to direct thought. He suggested imagining scenarios, conversations, and even arguments entirely in English. This mental exercise, he argued, was the most powerful way to rewire the brain for spontaneous and fluent communication, cutting out the middleman. How make confidence in speaking was, he realized, less about being perfect and more about being willing to make mistakes. Every error was a learning opportunity, a stepping stone. He encouraged a mindset of curiosity and exploration, viewing communication as a journey, not a destination, fostering resilience. Alex also shared his specific process for English story reading. He would read a paragraph, then immediately listen to it. Then he'd read it aloud himself, trying to match the intonation. This multisensory approach ingrained the language deeply, making vocabulary and grammar stick more effectively and naturally. He encouraged finding a speaking buddy or joining online communities to apply how to speak with people in real time. He emphasized that even short, simple conversations were invaluable. The goal was to overcome the fear of interaction, to experience the joy of connecting with others using the language. His journey proved that language learning was not a race, but a marathon of consistent, deliberate practice. The very interesting story was not just something he read, it was something he lived, demonstrating the profound impact of daily dedication. It truly transformed his entire communication approach. The quiet moments of English story reading transformed into vibrant, confident conversations. The initial struggle melted away, replaced by an authentic flow. He no longer felt like a passive observer in English-speaking environments, he was an active participant, contributing his thoughts and ideas freely. He recalled the overwhelming feeling of not being able to articulate a simple thought, the words stuck somewhere between his brain and his tongue. That frustration was now a distant memory, replaced by the smooth rhythm of natural speech. The initial struggle felt like a lifetime ago. Why You Must Listen was not merely about comprehension, it was about internalizing the melody of English. He learned that every language has its unique cadence, and actively listening to stories allowed him to absorb this unspoken rhythm, making his own speech sound more authentic. The act of English story reading became a daily ritual, a calming and enriching part of his routine. It was no longer a task for language improvement, but a source of pleasure and imaginative escape. This enjoyment fueled his continued progress effortlessly. He found that the characters in the very interesting story were not just static figures on a page. He empathized with their dilemmas, celebrated their triumphs, and through their words, he began to discover his own linguistic voice. The stories made language personal. Alex's advice on "Let me tell you" talking tips extended to embracing mistakes. "Don't fear them," he'd say. "They are your best teachers," highlighting exactly where you need to focus your efforts. Every mistake is a step closer to fluency. He often emphasized that talk in English just one page per day was the secret sauce. It built unbreakable habits. The brain, he explained, thrives on consistency, slowly but surely rewiring itself with each page, each word, each listening session. The confidence gained from "start talking at home" transcended just English. He found himself more articulate in his native language too, more comfortable expressing complex thoughts, a ripple effect of his focused language practice. He taught that how to think and speak effectively meant nurturing an English-speaking inner monologue. It was about creating a mental space where English was the default language, allowing thoughts to form directly in that medium. The gradual process of "How Make Confidence in Speaking" was a testament to the power of small, consistent actions. No overnight miracles, just steady, unwavering dedication leading to remarkable progress over time, piece by piece. He often highlighted how to speak with people was less about perfect grammar and more about conveying meaning and connecting. The stories taught him natural phrases and polite expressions that facilitated genuine human interaction. The initial shyness that had plagued him seemed to have evaporated entirely. He engaged in conversations with genuine enthusiasm, his mind actively seeking opportunities to communicate, rather than shying away. It was a complete reversal. He realized that the narrative structure of English story reading made vocabulary acquisition organic. Words were learned in context, associated with emotions and plot points, making them easier to recall and use appropriately. The simple act of immersing himself in the very interesting story provided a continuous stream of authentic language input. This constant exposure was key to developing an intuitive understanding of English, beyond just rules. Alex often mused that his journey truly began when he understood why you must listen with an active ear, not just for the plot, but for the rhythm, the pauses, and the natural flow of spoken English. This deepened his learning. He found a new appreciation for the nuances of language, the subtle ways words can convey feeling. English story reading taught him empathy through character dialogue, enhancing his overall communication skills, even in his own life. The daily commitment to talk in English just 1 page per day became less of a chore and more of a cherished ritual. It was his personal time to connect with the language, to grow, to explore new linguistic landscapes. He often spoke about the transformation from merely understanding words to actually how to think and speak fluidly. This was the pinnacle of his learning, where the language ceased to be an external tool and became an internal voice. For those aspiring to speak, he consistently urged, start talking at home, even if it felt silly. This initial self-practice built the necessary muscle memory and psychological comfort for external communication later on. The key to how make confidence in speaking, Alex discovered, was not waiting until you were perfect. It was about starting, making mistakes, and learning from each interaction, building resilience with every attempt. He realized that how to speak with people effectively wasn't about complex sentences, but about clear communication and genuine connection. The stories taught him the art of simple, impactful language. Alex's journey underscored that learning English was an adventure, not just an academic pursuit. The very interesting story he read was just the beginning of his own compelling narrative of linguistic triumph. His newfound fluency didn't just open doors to conversations, it unlocked a deeper understanding of diverse cultures and perspectives presented in the stories, enriching his entire worldview profoundly. He could now articulate complex ideas, share personal anecdotes, and even crack jokes in English, something he once thought utterly impossible. His voice, once silent, now resonated with confidence. The habit of talk in English just 1 page per day became a testament to the power of consistent micro-actions. Each page was a brick, building an unshakable foundation for his fluent future. This very interesting story, his own story, became a beacon for others, proving that with dedication, consistent practice, and the right approach, anyone can achieve remarkable fluency and confidence in English.